Hello everyone. So today we are going to implement this fixed camera system in Unreal Engine 5. So this is inspired from the games like Resident Evil. So here you can see, even though we are controlling the character, the camera is fixed. So this allows us to showcase the level in a better way so that we can emphasize on the level design and the feeling of the level. So as you can see, even if the camera is changed, the momentum of the character is continuous through different angles. If I release the movement button and press, now it works relative to the camera. So that means here now I have W pressed, which is move away from the character. So here I'm gonna keep W pressed, so you can see the character moves away, and even if the camera changes, the character has the same movement. If I release and press again W, now you see it turns around and move away from camera, which is the logical way of thinking because W is supposed to move away. And here the next change. And here there is a difference in this camera. Even though the camera is fixed, I have enabled the camera to keep looking at the player, so focus on the player, so it rotates to the player. Now you can see, so we don't lose track of player. So yeah, this is what we are going to work on today. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that you can download the project files of this project and all other thousands of projects that I have done in my channel from Patreon page. Link is in the description below. So once you become a member, you can download any project without a limit. So feel free to check it out. That would help me to continue what I do in my channel. And let's get back to the tutorial. Okay, so this is the level that I'm planning to implement this system. So by the way, this level was available for free for this month by Stormcrow Studios. So this video is not sponsored from them or anything. I just found it online for free, so I thought of this level is suitable for something like this. And yeah, so as you can see here in this view, this looks fantastic. So it has the, by the way, I'm using medium scalability because in high scalability this video recording, since I have to record the screen as well, it might be a bit slow, so that's why I'm using medium. So yeah, in this view this looks fantastic. So but if I play with the default character, now you see, since we are using the default third-person view, it does not have that that emotion I need to see in this level. So it kind of looks cheap or not suitable. So what I want to have is some camera angle that nicely portray this level. So a fixed camera angle, somewhat inspired from games like Resident Evil, early games. So instead of starting playing right away with the third person angle, I want to, here we have this cinematic camera also placed by the developers themselves, so something similar to that. And I have placed the starting position here. Maybe I'll place it over there. Okay, like this. So yeah, that's better. Now let me add a folder, pp, and maybe I'll call it CLM cameras. And let's add a blueprint class actor, I'll call it 𝐶1 camera. No specific reason for the name, just CodeLikeMe. So right here I'll add the camera component like this, and then I'll drop it here in this view, and rotate it up a little bit. Okay, I'm not sure why this flickering happens though. So yeah, this is the camera angle, the initial angle that we would have. So once I start the game, I need to start the game with this angle. So for that, here is the blueprint, and here in the begin play, first I'll add a variable. Let's call it default camera. I'll make it visible, and I will leave it false, but for this instance I'll make it true. Can't see it. Oh, I'm selecting local fog. Okay, here I'll make it true. Now in the begin play, if it is the default camera, so I'll activate this camera instead of the player's camera. So for that we can get player controller and use set view target with blend. Since this is the first camera, we don't really need to have any blending. It just should be there when we start playing. So as the new target, I'll give self a reference. Right now here, when if I play the game, now you see we have that camera and character is moving. Since we are looking at the same direction as the character, it works. Maybe not always. Let's see. Forward is fine. Yeah, it works for the most part. But if we had a different angle, this might not work. Maybe let's start with a position like this. That would be better. Yeah. Okay. So now the character goes like that. Also, to match this mode, let's stop making it running. And let's make the character walk. That's better. So after a while, when the character reach a certain area, let me detach. We may use an angle like this. So in that case, character should come towards the player, towards the camera. So it gives a good look on the scene behind as well. So to implement that, first here let's add, let me stop the game, let's add a collider and I'll call it start trigger. Right now from the start trigger, I'll add a on component begin overlap, and here it overlapping with all dynamics. So there may not be only the player in the world, there could be NPC characters and other animals or whatnot in the world. So we may need a way to check if it is exactly the player character that is overlapping. So only if the player is overlapping, we should possess this camera or switch to this camera. The best way to implement this is, here I'll simply add an interface, a blueprint interface, PPI player, and then I'll add a function is player. This should return a boolean, and then in this third person character blueprint I'll implement that PPI player. Now we got that interface. So here I'll return the value of is player controlled. So if this character is currently controlled by the player, this will return true. Okay. Now that I have implemented this here, we can use it. Other actor is player. If yes, let's do the same thing that we do here. So we should do this unless this camera is already activated. So to check that, I'll add another blueprint, camera activated. By default it would be false, but here I'll make it true. Set camera activated. No, maybe this is not a good idea, because when another camera takes control, we would have to set that variable false too. So let's come to that later. First let's implement this part. Branch, yes. Now this time let's add some blend time and lockout going. Our previous camera is also already locked, so it should not be a problem. And here start trigger. Now it could be here, but now in the level, the next camera, I'll place it in a place like this. Yes, that view is better. Maybe like this. Oh, hold on. I will keep this 0 roll, and from the camera itself I'll add the rotation, because I need to manipulate the angle of location and location of this trigger also. So let's move the trigger to a place like this, and let's make it bigger. Right, now the trigger of this camera, because we are using the same blueprint, I'll move this trigger also here, a place like this, so that if player moves back, we can return to that camera. Okay, and the second one should not be default. Yeah, it's not. Okay, now let's test. All right, here goes the character, and it's not going straight. It has a little bit of an angle, and the camera did not switch. Oh yeah, it did. Okay, now yeah, here I have to press W, but it actually moving toward us, so it ideally it should be S. So here if I press S, it's going back, which is a bit awkward. And so the direction of the character is also messed up when I move to right and left. So to fix that, here in the character, this is how we give the moment input. So instead of using this control rotation, I'll get player camera manager, get camera rotation, and this is, here we are getting the right vector. So split, let's use this roll and this yo. Oh well, actually we don't have to do that. Oh no, we can't. And similarly here also, let's use this yo. Now inputs should work properly. Yeah, better. And here camera will switch, but I don't think we need to have that movement. So now when I press S, the character is coming towards me, which is correct. If I press W, it's moving away. D right, A left. So movement is now understandable. Now at this point we should ideally switch to another camera angle. So how do we fix that blending thing? I'll put blend times 0 back. Okay, and for the once the character is inside, let's have a camera angle like this, so that this may be something like some good statue or something. So weaving it in an upper angle like this over the shoulder of this statue kind of makes the character feel smaller, something like that. We can invoke a feeling like that. And also in here too, when we show this in a lower angle, even though we see the character big, the surrounding is even bigger. So that also gives us the feeling that the character is somewhat a small thing in this world, that kind of a feeling. And also it's nicely showcased this amazing level design. Okay, so now here, now you know how to do it. Just add another camera like this. Over here. So this is the way I set up the camera. Now we need to move the trigger into perhaps over here. So character definitely has to run into this trigger, otherwise, because it's coming through the door. Okay, now if the character come inside and go back, again we need to restart this camera, otherwise character will not be visible from here when you go outside. So perhaps we might have to enlarge this camera. We can do something like this, or we can actually program and add an additional trigger volume as well, but this is enough for now. Right, let's see. And switched here, so here the direction changes because I was key pressing W. That is something I should have avoided. I will look into that perhaps later. Okay, now here we got the character like this. Right, so if the character comes over here, obviously we don't see the character, so we need additional camera angles, or we need to make the camera focus on the character. So if the character leave outside, see, again camera switched back. One more thing. On view target, no. Here. On event become view target. On event end view target. So this is something useful. So on become view target, yeah, here we can have a boolean variable. Active camera. I'll set it to true here, and I'll set it to false here. Right. Now let's have another variable. This does not have to be visible. Focus on character. Maybe instead of calling character, let's call it target or player. And in the tick, let's have a branch is active camera, and also focus on player. If both these conditions are true, we can get player character and get actor location, and then find look at rotation from the camera, get world location to the player location. Okay, and then set world rotation. And I'll make it true for this camera, the camera inside this hole. Focus on player. Right now, see, now as the player moves, the camera keep looking at the player, so we always see the player. So it allows even for us to move into other directions like this. All right. Okay, so to keep the continuity of the movement when the camera changes, let's do something like this. By continuity, what I mean is when the camera changes, you see the character also turns to the other side because the new camera is forward and the previous camera's forward is different. So we need to avoid that. If I keep W or whatever the current input pressed, I need to continue the same movement that the camera already has unless the player lift the finger and press again. So for that, here in this BPI player, I'll add a new function, update camera component, and as an input I'll give a reference to scene component, new camera. I'll call it new camera, and then I'll call this function whenever I do a camera switching. That means here I get player character update camera component and give a reference to the camera, the activated camera, and I'll call the same thing from here as well when I set the default camera. Now in the player character, I'll implement that update camera component. So here I'll promote this to a variable as new camera, and also I'll space have another variable called prev camera, that stands for previous camera. So here if let me convert this to a validated get, and if I don't have a valid value in previous camera, I'll set it not like that. I'll set the previous camera with this new camera. So then when we get this rotation, let me collapse this to a function. Let me delete this too, as we are not using them any longer. Collapse to function, well, let me expand it like this. And recombine and output so that I can convert this to a proper function. Collapse the function, get camera rotation, and I'll make it a pure function, so we don't need to connect it to anything. And oh, we don't need a return value here. We only need the rotation, so I can split this. X goes here, Z goes here, and for this only Z goes here. Okay, now let's go inside. So here still what we are doing is getting the player camera manager. Let me quickly check if I have made any mistake. Things are still working, so still it's good, but the continuity is not fixed yet. So what I'm gonna do is, here let's check if we have a valid preview camera. If yes, we should return get world rotation. We should return the rotation of this value. Otherwise we should return the value of this player camera manager. This part may not execute because we have a default camera, but in case we don't, this would be required. So I'll call it cam rotation. Why there is 2 here? Okay. Now let's oh, not yet. So only if I lift the finger and press, this this component should be updated. So that means here when this is completed, let me add a readout node here and collapse update camera. So here if we have a valid new camera, I'll put it into the previous camera. That's all we need to do here. Right, now let's test. So this time I'm going to keep W pressed without lifting. Oh, didn't work. Sorry. Here I should have connected to not valid. Now it should work. Let's see. I pause the recording for a moment so I can save some time. Okay. Yeah, it's working. See, I haven't lifted the W, but if I lift W and press W again, now you see it's going back. So in this transition also, see, it's still coming towards me, but I have W pressed. If I release and press, now this time if I press, if I have to press S in order to move towards me, press W to move away from me. So this is working as intended. Now for the final time, I'm gonna keep it pressed until the end, so we can test the other camera transition as well. Great. Okay. So yeah, everything is working as intended. So let me know, I'm gonna stop this episode right here. So let me know what else you guys would like me to cover in this system. Right, perhaps we can implement something like a rail camera. So as the character moves forward, we can move the camera parallel to the character like this, or some overhead camera, something like that. So yeah, feel free to let me know and I'll try to cover them as well. Thanks for watching. As always, updated project files will be available for the download in the Patreon page. Link would be in the description below, and see you in another episode. Goodbye.